My name is Brian and welcome back to Desert Theory. We are excited tonight. We have our oil pan, the gasket seal. We're ready to get that oil pan back on, get that transmission back on, get this thing closer going down the road. So the first thing we did is we took our Permatex gasket seal, the right stuff, and we opened that up and, well, I'm pretty sure this is not gonna make a good seal. So there's not much we can do here without that, so I'm jumping in the car with Kelly. We're heading off to the auto parts store. We're jumping in a minivan.
We're gonna hop in Mama's hot rod. You ready, Brian?
So this is the older 4-piece seal for an oil pan. So there's a lot of pieces, and that's why we were so specific and needed this gasket seal, this Permatex gasket seal. So Kelly's throwing a bead of that on right now.
Yeah.
And then the 2 rubber pieces that go on the end, we'll put those up in the motor, and the pan will go up and go onto those. All right, so right now Kelly's just dropping one of the 4 pieces of the seal down in there, and he's dropping it down there on the back side of the motor.
Yep. So this is kind of the original Chevrolet V6 or V8 style gasket. They use the same type of gaskets. 4 pieces. The modern engines are all 1 piece. This would all be 1 piece, but they don't have a 1-piece gasket for this motor. So
there's a reason they went away from 4-piece gaskets. They don't work that good.
it's more difficult for sure. Right front to back. Yeah.
Okay, oil pan's on, and now we're gonna move to flywheel, pressure plate, clutch disc, and we're gonna be getting that in here right now. Okay, so when we pulled the flywheel off, the flywheel bolts were toast. They had been ground down on the head. They were in there with a lot of Loctite. They came out super hard, and so we just needed to get new bolts. So we purchased the new flywheel bolts, and they were a touch longer. They were built for a stock motor. This is not stock, not a stock crank. So they're too long. They would go all the way through the flywheel, through the crank, and hit the motor. So Kelly's cutting them off right now. We have to bring them down to 1 inch, and that's what he's doing.
All right, so we're gonna take about a 1/4 inch off of these bolts. So we're gonna thread a nut on there, and then when we cut it off, we can use that nut. When we back it off, it cleans up the threads. So you don't have to worry about your threads being messed up from cutting on them. So we just leave like a 1/4 inch sticking out there and use the nut as a guide for the cutoff wheel, and cut them off. Okay. So then we just back this off. That'll take any little burr off of the threads that we might have made. And then just need to touch them up, deburr them, they're ready to go.
So now what we're gonna do is just take this on the flat grinder and just kind of take that sharp edge off just to where it threads on easier and doesn't cut us. Okay, so all that took a little bit longer than we were hoping, but it was all, we had to be careful with that oil pan and just everything in here. We just kind of fought having to cut those bolts off for the flywheel, but we're looking like we're moving forward now. We have the engine or the transaxle adapter plate on the motor, got the flywheel back on. So we are ready to start working on getting the transaxle in here. So Okay, this is a heck of a lot easier with 2 people. We are pretty close.
Oh yeah. Look at that. A little bit more, Brian. But
3,
clutch.
1, 2, wind up. There it is. So we got lucky on that.
Yeah, we didn't have to fight the input shaft on the transmission. Sometimes,
Oh.
Sometimes,
Oh. Oh.
hello.
I left a mark.
I'll feel that one in the morning. Woo! But the input shaft lined up into the clutch, so we didn't have to fight that. Put it all back together, Brian. Bolt it up. This is gonna be awesome. Okay. While you're doing that, I'm gonna work on the oil, dry sump oil lines for the oil pan.
Perfect. Okay, so what Kelly was talking about was the dry sump, all the oil lines from the dry sump, and you can see they're just kind of awkward to get to here. So he's just gonna have to kind of fight those back on like he had to fight them off. It's just tough to get wrenches in there and just kind of a pain. So he'll be working on that. I'm gonna get that hardware started, get that hardware mounted up for the transaxle. So we got a transaxle in, we got exhaust in, we got a bunch of lines hooked up, we got the starter in. It's looking pretty good back here. It's looking more like a car. It's always fun to start putting this back together. So pretty happy with that. It's getting pretty late. It's 12:30. We both have to kind of do quite a bit of work tomorrow. I think this dude's kind of losing it a little bit. He's just, I don't know, he's been making motor noise in there for the last half hour. So I think we better get out of here.
Hey, no, I'm doing R&D. I'm actually working on stuff. I'm not just talking to the camera.
It looks like it. Well, last night was pretty cool for us. We had a bunch of stuff to work on. A bunch of it wasn't super easy. We kind of fought it. We had to go get that gasket seal. We had to cut those bolts down that were too long. And we were still able to get all the work we wanted to get done. So just couldn't be more pleased with last night. Looks a lot better with the transaxle sitting back in there. So next week is hubs, trailing arms, axles, CVs. So big night on next Thursday. Just excited to work on it, getting this thing ready for the middle of March. Thanks for watching.